to Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for an update. A bookish update. So, first, as far as podcasts go, I'm still listening to the Rest is History series on the French Revolution, and I started listening to their telling the story of 1066, which was the Vikings and the Danes and all those guys. I guess the Danes are the Vikings, I don't know. But, the Danes and the Saxons are, and I'm listening to that while I'm reading this, which is basically a fantasy version of that. And then I've been trying to, because I'm backed up on how many episodes I've downloaded for like all the history ones, like the Rest is History, Gone Medieval, and American History Hits. I'm kind of going back and forth and focusing more on those than the book related podcast. And it's kind of hard because I want to listen to the book podcast as well. But I'm like, I have all these download episodes of these history podcasts, so I need to listen to those first. And not that I don't want to listen to those. I love those too. But there are times when I kind of miss listening to the book only ones. So, but I've downloaded those, and I still want to listen to them. I just, so it's not that I don't want to listen to the history ones. So I'm just I'm making those first, prioritizing those first, since I have so many of those downloaded. And also I gotta delete them when I'm done listening to them. And then occasionally listening to the book related ones as well. And I did listen to one of the episodes on reading classes where they were talking about, can you be too critical on books? And listening to that one was kind of motivated by, I've been watching a lot of videos from some booktubers, like, discussing reviews and stuff. Like, of course, I've also been listening to, like, some of them are talking about the literary crisis, and also how everyone has mixed feelings on book talk, and how they can be a little critical critical with those people, with the book talkers. And now I can't really form a fair opinion because I don't use book talk, so I don't know anything about that except for what I hear from other booktubers that talk about it and critique them. And there's like, I feel like there's two camps when it comes to the criticism of book talk. There's the people that are like, think that don't really trust their reviews, their recommendations, because sometimes there are books that aren't as good as they claim they are. But then there's also those people who will defend them and be like, book talk isn't just these genres, aren't just talking about these books. They also talk about books that are classics and that are, that are actually well written and, have quality, or at least in their opinions. So I've heard a lot of mix on both. And I don't know what I think, because I can't really, like I said, I can't form an opinion because I'm not on book talk. But I'm gonna, I didn't think it was the end of the world when we were gonna possibly lose it because I don't use book talk. But, I kind of understood people saying talking about the value of book talk, and, I was definitely trying to listen to everybody's, as many people as I could's opinion on it, because this is a really interesting topic, and how the world feels about book talk, and how people, in the whole discussion on what is good, what are books that deserve to be praised and are genuinely good, objectively, and then what books are just more just fun, in that, maybe they're in that it's like, can you really call them masterpieces? In the idea of just because a book you can enjoy a book, but that doesn't necessarily mean that book is good quality either. Like, it's just more of a fun book. But then, and how some people feel like you're taking it away from them, because if you're critiquing the book, Now, I don't think that's necessarily, I agree that's not what they're trying to do. They're just trying to point out that there are some books that are, yes, they're fun, they're good in an entertaining way and enjoyable reads, and an appealing story, but not all things that are entertaining are necessarily good quality. It's like, it's a very, or don't have, it's a very interesting topic, I think. But bringing this back around to that podcast, I remember a while back I listened to their reading glasses talking about reviews and how, and they like, and how you should just, you don't have to write write like people, like your teachers expect you to write when you write a review, because no one cares as much about that. They just want to know if you enjoyed the book and maybe what's good and bad about it. And I kind of have mixed feelings about that, because I kind of like I want to be able to analyze it a little bit more and talk about it in depth. Although I don't always love when I'm trying to, I picked like 4 or 5 books off the shelves at the Outpost Bookshop and trying to narrow it down to 4 at the most, ideally 3, and well, ideally 2 would be, if I could, narrow it down to 2, but that's always hard because there's, I can't decide. I'm a very indecisive person, and all the books I was interested when, at the time, I always pick books that I'm interested in. Well, not always. Sometimes some of them I'm not. And I'm only mild, or like, not that I'm not interested at all, but I'm only mildly interested. And I kind of want to be critical, better at being critical, but I'm not. I'm not very good. And also, like, a lot of times I will enjoy something and think it's good, but then I end up hearing from other people, oh, this is a poor adaptation, or this is, I'll hear them point out all the flaws of it, and then I'm like, oh. And I know I can still enjoy it. I'm not gonna be like, you're taking away my enjoyment. But it does make me question things a little bit and wonder, why didn't I see that? Like, and feel a little embarrassed because, like, I can't always, most of the time, I don't see this kind of stuff. And other people will point it out, and then that's when I realize, oh, wait, and then think about it again, and be like, okay, yeah, I see your point. And I do want to get better at it. But anyway, but with that being said, going back to the critical thing, I think sometimes people can be, because sometimes I wonder if people can be a little too easy at times. But then again, that means, am I being too easy? If I think, sometimes I think I am a little too easy, but then I don't know, I won't recognize these things. But then again, the only reason I'm easy is because I might not realize it. I can't figure out, okay, what is wrong with this? Why, what might someone not like about this, or what is the flaw in this story? And then it's until someone points it out to me, then I notice it. I don't entirely agree with them. I think you can. It doesn't, like, I'm not saying people can still enjoy things. I enjoy things that are not that might be more fluff or have some flaws. But I just think people should acknowledge, I think we need to, and including myself in this, need to try to think about, why might someone not like this? And see, not that I absolutely have to do that. Like, I definitely don't have to do that. But I am a reviewer, and I want to. And I think, like, I'm writing a review right now where it was a book I enjoyed mostly, but there were some things about it that, like, I didn't like the romance, for instance. And I felt the romance was too dominating the story a little too much. And I wanted more of the history stuff, because it's a past meets the present kind of story, like, kind of like what Kate Morton does. So I do like, because not every book is perfect, even if you think it is. I think you do have to consider, like, take off those rose-colored glasses and think, because I don't think any book can be perfect. I don't think it's possible, because there's got to be something. Maybe you guys don't agree with that, but I think it's impossible for a book not to have something about it that's a little, like, that not everybody, because how we feel about books is subjective. And sometimes it's just that the book is too long, or like in Lord of the Rings, there's too much too many details being described by Tolkien. He spends so much time describing things. And for me personally, I think that immerses you into the world, but I know a lot of people, that's a criticism from a lot of people, and that he just spends too much time describing things. And then there are little annoying there are some minor annoyances, like every time the characters address someone, especially amongst men, they're like, you they say their name and the son of every time. Like, there are people, when people first meet Frodo, they're like, Frodo, the son of Drogo, or or when they address all the kings, which, I guess I think it would make sense with the kings, because they're kings, they're nobles. um but yeah, and like, but like I said, sometimes it's hard for me to notice those things until after it's pointed out to me. So I do get self-conscious about that. But yeah, it was an interesting, like, hearing the perspective of these podcasters versus people on BookTube who are a little more critical, and not necessarily in a bad way, and me being like, oh, how dare they? Because I actually enjoy listening to some of these people, even if I don't entirely agree with them. There's sometimes a topic that I care so much about that I disagree in a really big way, that I'm like, I can't. Like, I can't even, I'm hesitant to watch, videos that discuss, like, Beauty and the Beast sometimes. Or, like, you know, I'm intrigued by the videos that discuss Once Upon a Time overall, but as soon as they talk about Rumpelstiltskin and Rumple and Belle, then I'm like, I still kind of struggle with being like, I'm a little more objective about it, because now I'm distanced from it, but I still am I was disappointed with how things turned out with that show. But anyway, so yeah, that it's an interesting stuff. It's, interesting to think about. But anyway, so let's update you guys. So I did, well, before I show you the physical books I'm reading. So as far as my Kindle, I did make a little more progress on that. I've been kind of reading it on and off. I like read it before I fall asleep, and there are times when I'm so tired that I just decide not to read from my Kindle, and then I just try to go to sleep early, a little earlier. And then sometimes, like, I decided to bring the book with me because I had an appointment this morning, so I brought it with me. And my mom also dropped me off at the Outpost Bookshop, and I read a little bit on my Kindle there. So I made a little more progress. It's going slowly, but like I said, I'm trying to, get another book on my Kindle read, so that, to balance it out. We don't read some of the books on there, and then I can buy and add other books to my Kindle. Because I don't want to be one of those people who has a bunch of books on my Kindle that I forget to read, and they just sit there, and then I have a bunch of them to read, and I can't buy anymore. I could, but I'd rather not. I'd rather be good about that and actually read some of the ones I've already bought. Which is apparently easier for me to do than my physical books. Not that I don't, I do read my physical books, but I'm a lot slower. Read like, I buy more before I can get through a lot of them. So anyway, so and that book is War and Ruin by Brian Cahill. I'm really enjoying that. I'm loving that series. It's so much fun. And I want to read more books about dragons, which for a while I did have these two big massive volumes of these novellas, collection of novellas about a dragon, a world that was all about dragons, and they could talk and everything. But I kind of, after a while, at the time, I lost interest, and I kind of wish I still had them. But I was also, trying to go through my shelves, which I need to comb through them today and see if there's anything I can take off my shelf that I can donate. But anyway, and so it's really getting interesting. Like I said, last time I talked about War and Ruin, so I did mention that one of my theories was proven right about how they're trying to turn one character against another. We also met another, in the last chapter they met a druid came into play, so not exactly like a mage, like far older and more advanced, I guess, maybe. I don't know the difference in this world anyway. But again, I love the bond between the dragons and the Dreylanes. I think that I really like that bond between them. This like they feel they're close, like they're like family. They're like, they're their pets, but more than pets, they're like their best friend. And we also have some stuff. Some characters were revealed to be something that they didn't realize. Like, Callan wasn't the only one that there was a secret about himself that he didn't know. He wasn't the only one. There's another character who something got revealed about them in this book that they didn't realize, that they have a bit of a magical thing going on. And then we've also gone to one of the elf cities, which is really cool. This one was actually hidden from the world, so and it's described like it's this really beautiful city, and how they talk about how elves are better. They're more artistic, even with their cities, the places where they live. Which makes sense. I feel like I could see the elves being a little more creative in their not just in what they do, but in how they design where they live, the more artistic types. And let's see what else, because again, it's so hard. I can't really talk too much about it because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, because I really think you guys should check out the series if you're a hardcore fantasy person. And we've also started getting more characters on the side of the Empire, which I really like that the author is doing this, where he's showing Ryan Colhill showing both sides, the people that support the Empire and the people who are rebelling against the Empire. We see both their perspectives, and they're not all bad. Like, we see certain groups of our enemies as the bad guys, and we're the good guys, and I think it's a little more complicated than that. They're human. The people that we consider our enemies are still human. They have feelings, they have desires, they believe they are the good guys, they believe that what they're doing is right. But you have on the side of the Empire people that are questioning things now, because they don't like what the result is, and they feel like the Empire is just as tyrannical. And there's one character that says the Empire is just as bad as the Order was. So I think it's interesting philosophical ideas of, when in war, not everybody is, it's not so black and white, and that not everybody's they may be your enemy, but they're still human. They still like. So it's I like fantasy novels that kind of explore that idea, and they make it a little more complicated, not just. I mean, I'm great with stories like Lord of the Rings, where there's a clear villain and a clear good guy. There's. And same thing with Harry Potter, where although the people that work for Voldemort were human too. I mean, were wizards and humans, and they not all they're selfish people, but they're not. I mean, of course, what they did was evil. Some of the things that they did, a lot of the things that they did was just plain evil, but they're still in a literal sense humans that have, got caught up in this terrible mentality. But there is still a clear cut good guy, bad guy in Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, and I enjoy those stories too. But sometimes it's fun to see want to see that. I mean, that's what I think, and that's what grim dark is. I think that there's no clear cut good guy or bad guy, and sometimes the good guys do bad things, and sometimes the bad guys have moments of that they care about somebody else. I mean, like, what is his name? Joe Abercrombie. His books seem to explore that. I mean, I only read one of his series, or trilogy. I do want to come back to it. Like, I do have The Devils by him, which is also going to be a series. I just found out, which is a little annoying because now I have to get the next books, and I have to wait on the next books, and I'm almost hesitant to read the first book. Because even though, I mean, I do want to support in reviewing and get other people into it. Granted, it's Joe Abercrombie, but still, I mean, there's another book also that's not as popular as Joe Abercrombie. Is by an author that's not as popular, isn't as known, that I got from another fantasy booktuber I like watching, that their review of the book got me to buy the book. And I haven't read it, but this year I probably should read it. This year should make sure it gets read. But anyway, but yeah, it's an interesting, but it's kind of nice to get, stories where things are a little more complicated with the characters, and that there's no strict good guy or bad guy. And as far as the series goes, I forgot to mention, I got back to the previous thought, and I didn't finish that thought. I was gonna say that when I get a first book and the rest of the series or trilogy hasn't come out yet, sometimes because it takes a long time for the author to put out the next book. And then I'm like, I get sidetracked by other ones, and then I feel pressured because I'm trying to make space and room on my shelf. So I'm like, let me get rid of this, because now I might not be interested anymore. And so sometimes I like to not read the first book until the next book comes out. And I know a lot of people say, on the one hand they understand, but on the other hand, you got to support the author. And that's not fair of you to wait and not, give this book attention and support and review it. But like I said, I mean, although I did, Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks. I have not gotten rid of that one. And now, now she's finally able to get that other one published. So, but anyway, so I'm also, that's what I'm reading on my Kindle, is Ryan Callhill's War and Ruin. And then I'm also reading, like I said, I'm reading this one. Again, this is one I can't talk a lot about because it is a sequel. But yeah, there are some shady characters that are like our main character, is willing to trust them. But I feel like you can't really, but it's like, this is going to bite you in the ass later if you're trusting this person. And it's one of these things where our protagonist, he actually kind of likes his enemy. He kind of admires him. Which I also think I do, that's to me is kind of an interesting storyline anyway, because seeing these people where enemies actually kind of like each other, admire each other, and respect each other, even if they're trying to kill each other. It's kind of fun to see that back and forth between them. So on the one hand, I'm like, why did you trust this guy? You can't. He's the enemy, and he did do this thing. But then on the other hand, it's like, those scenes are kind of fun. The scenes with them interacting, and our protagonist is like, I kind of actually like this person. I'm going to choose to trust them. But then it's going to backfire them later, which really sucks. This is one of those middle books where all the other, the protagonist has all the other characters mad at them because they're making dumb decisions or reckless decisions. And it's not one of those things where, why did the author make the character make this decision? it's more, the situation has forced them to make these important choices, and, you know, they don't know what else to do. Like, it's understandable why our protagonist made the choices that he did. But yeah, I'm really I'm enjoying this so far. I'm almost done with it. I'm on the last 3 chapters, so I will read those today once I'm done filming. But yeah, so that is The Spider by Leo Carew. Like I said, great series, and as I keep saying, if you liked Bernard Cornwell, especially his series The Last Kingdom, then you'll probably like this trilogy. Okay, and then we are finally on the next. Looks like I'm talking about is I started my reread of the Silmarillion by Tolkien, the Silmarillion, and I'm definitely getting into it more than I did last time. Of course, last time when I attempted to read it, I was a little distracted. There was too much noise, and I couldn't 100% pay attention. And I know, like, it's funny because some of those YouTubers that I was watching they were discussing reading bigger books or harder books, and some of them have said that there's no perfect time to read a book, and just you need to read it. But I do feel like there are times when you need to be able to pay attention and hear your own thoughts while you're reading it, and not have all this noise all around you. So yeah, there may not be a perfect time to read one of these books, but I think you should at least try to read it when there's less noise around you to distract you. But so this is, as I talked about when I first started to read this book, to me this is like reading the Bible. It's like the Bible for Middle Earth, because it's the first part is the origin story of Middle Earth and the creation of it. You have Iluvatar, who is like God, and then Melkor is like Lucifer or Satan or whatever you want to. And he had his angels, his these different like mini gods or whatever. I don't know who. I guess they're gods because that's how men look at, men and elves look at these people. They each have their parts, they each have their skills. Like, one of them is able to put, plant life and, trees and all that kind of stuff on Earth, or Arda, as they call it. Some of them one guy is the guy who hunts the beast and all the animals of Arda, and there's warriors, and they each have their part to play. Although some of them I didn't get enough information on them. Just that they were connected to one of the other gods, or, in some capacity, whether married or they were their sibling. And so, they made Arda and put, Iluvatar created the space, and all his mini gods, they put life on there, and they created this beautiful work of art, this place. And then Melkor, who was very jealous and petty, destroyed it all. So they're all pissed about that, and they go to war. And there's actually one of the gods, Tolkis, I think that's how you say it. He shows up. He was actually a spirit that showed up and helped them fight Melkor. And he was someone that had this very powerful laugh. And he was a warrior, so he helps them. His actions defeat Melkor, and Melkor goes into hiding and hides underground. But they also, just to be safe, they're called the Valar, these gods. They also create the Valinor, which I think that might be the Grey Havens that they refer to in Lord of the Rings, where the elves go. As they say something like that, this is like, in a way, this is like heaven, or in mythology, like Olympus or Valhalla. And so these 9 gods, there's 9 of them, they go there to hang out, and they stay there, but watch over elves and men. And it was kind of interesting that one of them, I don't remember which god it was, but it might have been the elves, who said that they thought that man looked like, looked like Melkor, even though they were Iluvatar's children. They were half of Iluvatar's children. So I thought that was kind of interesting that men look like remind the elves of Melkor. So that's really where I got. So more just focused on the creation story. And now I'm on the part, I think, where they're going to talk about the Silmarils. I think. Let me look at the table of contents. Okay, well, yeah, Quintus Silmarillion. Which the book doesn't look that long, but it has a lot of chapters. Last time I read this, I got to chapter 16, so I got pretty far into it. But like I said, I felt like because it's been so long that I need to start over with it. But I am so amazed and impressed what Tolkien has done. Had done. Like, he created his own world, his own mythology. He was able to explain everything. He created his own language. I mean, I wish I could do that. Like, I can't create my own language because I don't study languages. I mean, I kind of failed in Spanish, and that's supposed to be one of the more easier languages to learn. But in my defense, I wasn't too crazy about my teacher anyway. And so, it just, to me, it's so impressive what he did, how he created this, and really established a world all his own. But at the same time, it does go against the whole iceberg theory. I mean, I don't think he put all of this in Lord of the Rings. I mean, he wanted to, but that's why the appendices exist, because he couldn't put everything he wanted in Lord of the Rings. But it does defeat the iceberg purpose, the iceberg idea, because where it says everything else is under the surface. And granted, these other authors like Brandon Sanderson and Joe Abercrombie and all these guys, or Robin Hobb, they might have, or the people who write even that old, what's that series called? I can't remember. Dragonlance series. They might have massive notes too. I don't know, but it's not all in one book. Or they don't have other books talking about their worlds and going beyond their main stories. It is really cool that in the beginning of the book, in the beginning of this, they actually have a letter where Tolkien's friend, who was an editor, he asked him what Lord of the Rings was about, and he wrote this whole this long ass letter explaining exactly what he feels Lord of the Rings is about. So that was cool to read that, and I'm sure that's basically because I do have a copy of Tolkien's letters, that book that Humphrey Carpenter put together. I have that. I haven't gone through it yet, but I want to start reading that book as well, like reading a letter a night or something. But anyway, so that's where I am with this. Now let's get to the book haul. Okay, so this time I did stick to 3 books, unlike the last couple times where I've gotten 4. I was tempted to get 4, because I was thinking about getting there was one more I was gonna get, like, the one I kind of wasn't sure about was a biography on Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson. He's the one who wrote the Ben Franklin biography that I have, and so that was my reasoning to pass that book on, because I was thinking, well, let me see if I like Walter Isaacson's writing style, read his Ben Franklin book first. And this is the same thing because I almost bought another Kate Moss book. The author, not the model, but but then I was like, let me read her other book first, the one that I do have, because I have another book by her that I bought last time. So I was like, let me read that one first, and then if I want to get another one. But the problem, my only hesitancy, is that those books might not be there anymore. I mean, sometimes they are still there, multiple times I've been, but then eventually they do disappear because they get bought by someone. But anyway, let's show the 3 that I bought. So first we have. So this is a guy that my mom used to listen to his show on the radio sometimes, although she's kind of lost interest in him. But this is Glenn Beck's the original argument, the Federalists' case for the Constitution, adapted for the 21st century. So this is him kind of going over the Federalist Papers and how they were cheering on the Constitution and promoting it and trying to explain what it all means and why it's important. And I thought, why don't I get this book that discusses it? Even though I could probably ask my dad, who is a history person, and he does know a lot about the Revolution. He loves the Revolution. Like, there's a joke I've heard where most dads or most men love World War II, but my dad actually likes the American Revolution's content. And I did ask him to talk about when I read some of the essays, because I have read some of them from the Federalist Papers. We talked about it. I mean, it's been a while though, so I don't remember everything. So don't ask me to talk about them, because I don't remember. And that doesn't mean I didn't read it. It's just I don't remember everything because it has been a year since I've read it, and maybe even longer than a year since I read those essays. And I've only read them once. So it's, it's not like I remember everything, but this will be interesting to hear Glenn Beck's talk about it and explain it a little bit thoroughly. And it's actually, this is one that has some annotations in it, like someone underlined some stuff and wrote little comments, so I thought that's kind of cool. Having a book that has like annotations in it. But this actually, apparently, he also wrote at the time, at the top, it says New York Times bestselling author of Common Sense and nationally syndicated radio host. So I think that's about the Common Sense written by Thomas Paine. Which I think is always interesting when you only listen to a person and then you see their picture of what they actually look like, whether you look up them on the internet or you see on the back of a book that they wrote. It's always interesting because with some people their picture doesn't match the way they talk. Okay, so I'm going to read this back. The back of this. Glenn Beck revisited Thomas Paine's famous pre-Revolutionary War call to action in his #1 New York Times bestseller, Glenn Beck's Common Sense. Now he moves a decade forward in history to focus on the next great battle in America's founding, the debate over our Constitution. The Federalist Papers, the 18th century collection of political essays, pseudonymously authored by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, defended, and shaped our Constitution. The papers laid bare the original argument over the questions that are as relevant and urgent today as they were at the birth of our nation. Questions like, how should power be divided between the states and the federal government? What is the remedy if the government becomes too tyrannical? What is the proper use of military force? And of course, the most central question of the entire American experiment: is man really capable of ruling himself? Realizing that most Americans have not read these essential papers, Glenn Beck has updated a wide selection of them into modern English, but while our founders' words have been reworked, their meaning has not. Beck's translation is true to the original. In the introductions, commentary, and annotations he adds make them an invaluable resource for understanding the historical work that still remain one of the primary sources for interpreting the Constitution and understand the true intent of our founders. So this is going to be interesting to read this and to find out what he had, what he says about the Federalist Papers. Because like I said, I have read some of them, some of the essays, And again, it has been a long time. It's been a little over. It's been a couple. It's been like a year or two since I last picked it up, and I don't remember what all of them said. So that's gonna be interesting to read. And then we have, so whenever I see the this kind of spine, I knew it's the vintage editions. So for my sister, this is the same as the edition my sister has for what is it called? Gabriel Marquez, his cannot remember what's called, but but anyway, she has it in this edition. So I'm like, I mean, it's funny how sometimes some of these particular editions, when I see them, that is actually what grabs my attention. If it's a certain kind of edition, then I pick it up and read the description. Although this doesn't really have much on the back of what this is about, but it is an epic about this. It takes place during the Russian Revolution and before and after it, and it's about this one particular man. And it's actually, apparently it's been this quote by Maxim Gorky. I don't know who that is. He says this will be compared to War and Peace. So that's actually the person, which probably was not smart of them to do, but not that I would take advantage. But this person does have their address label in here. So that's fun. But anyway, it sounded really interesting. Like, I'm kind of intrigued by I'm interested in Russian literature. I haven't read enough of it yet, but there are some of them. Like, I've read War and Peace. No, I have not read War and Peace. In fact, I just bought a new paperback, so I can read a paperback instead of the cloth bound. But I've read Crime and Punishment, one of my favorites. I read Anna Karenina, which I also loved as well. And I've read The Idiot. I enjoyed that one too. That one was another favorite. And what else? I've read some of The Death of Ivan Ilyich and some of his the Kurtza Sonata. I'm trying to think of what else. What other ones were in that collection? But I've read a few of those stories, his Tolstoy short stories. And I think that's it. That should be another project actually, to read some Russian literature. But this book is, it's old because it's like the papers. But anyway, so it'll be is there any summary? I mean, all it says on the back is, in his enormous epic of the Cossack life during the revolution, Mikhail Sholokhov has achieved even greater power. Okay, that's just a blurb. Yeah, it doesn't even give what, I had to look it up on Goodreads to see what this was about before I decided to pick it up. So, but either, so I can't really, and I only read it once just to see if I'd be interested in buying it, so I don't remember what it said enough to tell you. So I can't really unfortunately I can't explain what this is about because I don't remember what the Goodreads description said. I just remember it sounded like, sounded really good, and I see epic, and then I'm like, ooh, I'm intrigued. And then the last book I got was, and I've had a book by this author before, but then I found it was a series, and I kind of had moved on. I wasn't as interested in that one at the time. but I saw this one. I recognized the author, and I decided to grab this one. And I liked the cover. Got my attention because I've been into medieval historical fiction, and this is actually apparently her take on Richard III, which I have a biography about him, and I recently watched listen to some podcasts that discuss Richard the Third, and not that long ago there was actually I don't know if it was in 2025 or 2024 or whenever, but I know there was an excavation of his body at the place where he was left to die, dragged, and then he died. I think he was already dead at that point. If not the way they dragged him and all that, and what they did to him, then he's definitely dead after that. After what Henry VII had done to him. But this book kind of is a fictional take that redeems him. So let me read the description for you guys. So, in this beautifully rendered modern classic, Sharon K. Penman redeems Richard III, vilified as the bitter, twisted, scheming hunchback who murdered his nephews, the princes in the Tower. From his maligned place in history with a dazzling combination of research and storytelling, born into the treacherous courts of the 15th century England, in the midst of what history has called the War of the Roses, Richard was raised in the shadow of his charismatic brother, Edward IV. Loyal to his friends and passionately in love with the one woman who was denied him, Richard emerges as a gifted man, far more sinned against than sinning. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people say it's partly because of Shakespeare that people view him. But then again, history, of course. Probably, but this kind of makes me think of, I haven't picked it up again yet, but from the intentions of, I cannot remember her name, the one who wrote Wolf Hall. Because that's also looking at a character that's been villainized, a person in history that's been villainized. And in Wolf Hall, the Cromwell Chronicles, or trilogy, is looking at Thomas Cromwell and exploring who he is and making him a little more understanding of him. That this book kind of reminds me of the intentions of that author whose name escapes me at the moment. So maybe I should read those together. But I always think about like two books that would be perfect read together, but then I never do them. Because, the one time I attempted to do it, I failed because one of the books was a really short book and the other one was super long, and that was reading I tried to read together Station 11 and The Stand, but The Stand is super long, and I also have an uncut edition of The Stand, so it's even longer, and the Station 11 is super short, although they made it into a TV series, or maybe a limited series. I don't know. But that is this one. And I am excited. But yeah, I had one of this author's works before. I cannot remember who she was writing about, but like I said, and I was trying to not look at Goodreads reviews because I try to look at Goodreads to narrow down my books, and so I read the reviews, and I was trying not to do that, but for some books I did read the reviews for one of the books. Just to see. It wasn't like a book that I really got excited about. It's a book I was interested in, but it wasn't like this one I'm actually kind of excited to read. And the same thing with, In Quiet Flows the Kingdom. The Dawn, or not the Kingdom, the Dawn. So that's what I got, and that's how my reading is going right now. I would love to know how your reading is going at the moment, what you're currently reading, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye.